Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. How you doing, brother?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm doing very well. Yeah, I enjoyed the inner circle call today.
Yeah, that you were coming on fire off that call, which is
Mm,
always awesome. You always seem to be on cloud nine after those inner circle calls in particular.
yeah, I love them. I just love coaching the men. It just, lights me up. Especially, I think yesterday, like I said in the podcast we recorded 2 episodes ago, I did the quarterly review with one of the guys yesterday. I've got another one tomorrow. So yeah, it's just even when they're not on track, it's still great because they're so they're so coachable. And if they're coachable and they've got the right tools and which they do, then they're never going to be off track for too long. And all these guys are just A players, so they really take the advice and just run with it.
Yeah, it's funny as I think back in retrospect, hindsight 2020, right? So, gosh, 15 years ago. So I signed up for coaching with a guy and he did group coaching. And he said, hey, look, I offer 3 different groups you can get into. One group is, I'm going to make up these numbers, right? One group is $1,000 a month. The next group is 5,000. And the third group is 10,000 a month. I was like, okay, what's the difference? We said, there's nothing. The difference are the people, there was men and women, the people that are choosing to be in those groups, and that's it. He's like, what you're going to find is the people in the $1,000 group, they're playing, right? They're playing the game. The people in the $5,000 group, they're B plus players, right? The $10,000 group, those guys and girls are flying, right? And as he even said, because the coaching's the same, the topics are exactly the same. There's no difference in the guidance, but the people you're surrounding yourself with is the difference. I thought that was so interesting, right? Such an interesting little tweak. So the guys in the inner circle, those guys are releasing the friggin' break. Like we talked about that in the Release the Break podcast. The inner circle for the guys, people that don't know that listen to this, is our highest 1-year mastermind group, right? It's a little more intimacy. They have more access to Tim, Arthur, myself going through it. But it's very similar, right? In the sense of you're playing with men who have committed in time, the biggest resource. They're also committed in capital, their investment financially into this, right? And the duration. So they're playing at a bigger level just by the simple fact of declaring so, joining a group like that, and surrounding themselves by other people flying that high. It's kind of like in sport when basketball, football, soccer, whatever. If you're a decent athlete, let's just say you're average, just average. If you play with people that are a lot worse than you, you play down to their level. If you play with people that are better than you, you play up to their level and you get better fast. And it's the same thing with any other thing in life, in business, in a mastermind group, in coaching, etc. It's very, very similar. So no doubt or no surprise, I should say, that you come off those calls in a high because those guys, they're putting in the work and they are very coachable. Mm-hmm. Speaking of coachable, what I want to talk about today is completely different. I want to talk about the scenario that a lot of guys fall into. And this is a scenario that's maybe men will find familiar, right? And the way this works, or often works, is a guy will be in I'll call it a less than sexual gratifying relationship, meaning sex is infrequent or not as frequent as they would like. And they're in their marriage. And oftentimes, in order to get sex, the guy's got to do some stuff. So the wife might come up to him and go, hey, babe, I'm tired. Will you take out the trash and will you help out with, the boxes in the garage and move them around? And then she might, undo a blouse button or something, right? And with the thought and the provocation that if he does this, then he's going to get laid or get a blowjob or something along those lines. And this goes on for a very, very long time, right? And this starts off early, and women do this all the time, even, women, single women. And I don't fault them for this at all, right? It's the sex drive of a man. If you're a breathing man, a 20-year-old hot woman comes up to you and says, oh, with big boobs and a nice butt, hey, could you help me move these heavy things out of my car? Most guys are going to be like, sure, I'll help you, right? And the idea they do it from is they're doing it because she's hot, which means means you're hoping for sex or hoping to be able to turn down the idea of sex, right? Because say you're in a committed relationship, you still do it. You like flirting with the idea of it, but you're not going to really do anything. So thus you're just wasting your time, right? Same thing happens. You're in a marriage, let's say, and it starts off that way, right? You're a young couple. Your wife starts flirting with you. She starts using this manipulative tactic, consciously or subconsciously. You start doing things around the house. You're watching the kids. She makes a compliment to you, like, wow, it's awesome that you took the kids and now I'm stress-free. Now I have time to be sexual with you, something along those lines. And then you get the blowjob, or then you get sex, right? So the theory here, and that let me tell you about, then that progresses. Now she's learned she can tantalize you with that, right? You think that you might get sex, say it's 5 years into the relationship or longer. And she says, hey, could you move the boxes in the garage? What used to turn into hot sex because you're helping her out doesn't. It's delayed. You need to do that 3 or 4 times. And then you get sex. And slowly what happens, Tim, is those timelines between what you want, the sex or the blow, whatever it is, goes further and further apart, right? And then animosity grows, et cetera, et cetera. What's happening here is you're becoming a chump, right? You're falling for the game. It's like a mouse in a maze trying to get the cheese, but the cheese keeps moving. So sometimes the mouse hurries through the maze and it's trying to get through it, and it's trying to get to the end to find the cheese, and the cheese is there for a while each time the mouse goes through all the obstacles. And the second, another time the mouse goes and there's no cheese. And the mouse says, okay, I'll try it again. The 3rd time, there's the cheese. Tries it again, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th time, no cheese. Tries the 7th time, gets cheese. The cheese gets further and further apart when the mouse gets the reward. And this happens for a lot of people, a lot of guys. And I know you've heard about this from guys in the movement, Tim. I want to know what you think about this process and how often you've heard this from other men.
How often have I heard this? I've heard it a lot. What used to work now doesn't. But often it comes hand in hand, at least in my experience with some of the men, with them settling. They're settling within other areas of their lives. We spoke about releasing the brakes a couple of episodes ago. And the likelihood is, if they're falling for this, they've got the brake on.
No doubt.
And they've got the brake on in other areas of their life as well. Because also, once they release the brake, they wouldn't accept that. And I'm not saying they would go away and start cheating or anything, but they'd have a conversation about the fact that, hey, what's going on? Essentially. Obviously, that's not necessarily how you do it, but they'd have a conversation about what was going on. And just, again, as we spoke about in the last episode, create and set some boundaries, right? And in order to do that, it's a mindset, right? It's almost, it's an identity. It's who you are. And again, back to the brake analogy, if you're that sports car, right? And you realize you're the sports car, and you realize, hang on a minute, I've got all this potential underneath the hood, as you Americans say. It's the bonnet for the UK guys. I've got all this potential underneath here. Man, I could go out there and I can enjoy those roads, and I can have such a great drive if I just release this brake. And when you realize what you are really capable of, and you realize that you are the sports car and you don't have to settle, and as a result you then go out there and really assert your authority in your own life and you take control of your health and you take control of your business and you take control of other areas, right? By default, that will spill over into here because it'll be such a contradiction for you to settle for this kind of arrangement or game. And this doesn't mean you go out there and be some kind of chest thumping alpha. You don't have to start doing all that with bravado. That's not how the guys that we work with arrive at that place. But yeah, you just, again, as I'm saying this to your question a moment ago, this is the journey the men take that fix this and escape this game, and instead play a different game, a game that they have written the rules for, and a game that serves everybody, but a game that they're very much winning.
Yeah, what happens for a lot of us guys is we're naturally just nice guys, and we're just good people, we're good-hearted, we want to help. And when you think about this, what can happen to some guys, right? As the sex dissipates or goes further and further at home, guys are obviously starting to fantasize more, and they start fantasizing about other women, etc. And they think, okay, I'm the nice guy. It's kind of written in their head. And when I do stuff subconsciously, when I do stuff at home, I get sex, right? It's a subconscious reward system. We have reward systems for eating and other things as well. And they find themselves starting to do stuff for other women, right? Other women start to utilize this, right? Oh, great. Could you come over to my house or to my office and help me lift these heavy things? You're so strong. Or can you help me, plow my driveway? And the guy's thinking, I'll plow your driveway if I can plow you, and he might not say it. And he goes over there and he helps out his neighbor or helps out his quote friend while doing this. All along, there's a subconscious fantasy of what could happen. Now, most guys don't act on it, right? And some, oftentimes, what we've heard from men who have acted on it, right? It doesn't go well. The woman's like, well, no, you're just a friend, or you're married, or I don't think of you that way, right? Going through it. It happens more often than not. Very rarely do we hear, and we talk to thousands of men on a regular basis, do we hear about these guys that successfully, they go over to a woman's house to help her with a chore or something, and they're having just headbanging sex and everything works out, right? It always falls apart in our experience, one way or the other. So usually the guy's going over there being a quote nice guy, just like he does with his wife. And subconsciously, he's got this fantasy of when he goes over there, he's going to help her out. She's going to see how amazing he is. And she's going to offer sex to him or come on to him. Then for most men, he's now going to be in the position to turn it down. No, I'm married. I can't do that. And he's walking away. And there's power in that. And a lot of guys like that, but they want the offering. It rarely happens, but that's the fantasy, right? That's the kind of the cheese at the end of the maze, so to speak, is at least to have that fantasy in the offering. So these guys become nice guys, and they find themselves doing this for a lot of people, right? Helping out a lot of women in particular. And they're doing this time and time again. So Tim, the analogy that I heard, and I like this. Have you ever seen the movie Shrek?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to guess most people have. And Shrek has Princess Fiona, right? She's hot. He loves her. He wants her. And, Princess Fiona is the one he's willing to do stuff for. But Shrek also has Donkey, right? Donkey just wants to be with Shrek, and Donkey makes all these requests of Shrek, and Shrek's just like, no donkey, over and over again. Like Donkey's the beast of burden, so to speak, right? And Shrek doesn't have it. So the analogy I heard, and I do like this, is you have to decide who in your life, who is your Princess Fiona, I think it's Fiona, Princess Fiona, and who are the donkeys? Because you don't do things for Donkey, but you do things for Princess Fiona, right? And the things you do for Princess Fiona, by the way, has sex with Shrek. That's not because he does things for her. He chooses to do them because he enjoys doing them, right? They have a great relationship. But what most men and most nice guys get to learn is that the women that aren't their wives, right? The women that aren't in their committed relationships, that aren't really just longtime close friends or some, they become donkeys, right? That sounds horrible out of context, but they become like donkeys, right? So same scenario. You got a girl that you know from the gym, Tim. Let's just say this hypothetically. I don't want to throw you into the bus, but hypothetically speaking,
how did you know?
Sorry, Amelia. That and she's like, hey, geez, Tim, you're strong. Could you come over and help me move these heavy boxes because I'm moving and everything? Your initial reaction might be like, sure, I'll come over. She's hot. Like, yeah, I'll come over and help her move the boxes. You got to remember, okay, wait a minute. She's not my Princess Fiona, right? She's a donkey. It's like, you know what? I don't do that. I only do that for my partner or my wife. I don't have the availability to do that. Good luck with that type of scenario. And this is where you apply this into your marriage, guys, is you get to set clear boundaries, to Tim's point, and use this story to be like, hey, look, you're my princess. Like we need to talk about this. We got married, and part of our agreement, part of the understanding with marriage is that we fulfill each other's needs. We're not going to have sex with other people. Therefore, ergo, we're going to be having sex together. How do we get back to that? And that may require some tough discussions, guys, on this. It may require some work on your part, right? It may require, if you go back and look at how to increase your sexual market value, right? It's a podcast that we did. Look at that one and get some answers there. But what you don't want to do is be the chump in the situation, running through the maze, chasing the cheese. And especially when that cheese gets moved often or becomes less frequent of a reward for you.
Yeah, no way. You just end up becoming desperate and needy. And that's to my point earlier. I spoke about this previously. When you live from the outside in, you've got business. Imagine a triangle, a pyramid, split into 5 layers. Those 5 layers are the 5 territories. When you live from the outside in, the base is business. The main focus is business. Above that is wealth. Above that is relationships. But for most guys, it doesn't really rise as far as the relationship because it's too exhausted from spreading it all around business. That, doesn't rise that far. And above relationships is health. Definitely doesn't go there. And above that is self. And when you live from the outside in and you start to sacrifice yourself and you become burnt out and you become exhausted and you find yourself in this game that you have no energy to play, but you don't even realize what's going on. So you end up playing it just in the hope of getting some cheese. In order to have the conversation Doug just mentioned a moment ago, one of the ways that it's going to fuel you and by default increase your sexual market value is to go from the outside in to the inside out and flip that triangle on its head. The Alpha Rise and Shine routine is one of the pillars to self, which becomes the base of the pyramid. And then it becomes health and then relationships, then wealth and business. From that place, it makes it much easier to enter into conversations like you just said, Doug, from a place of groundedness and certainty. You can have that balance between taking a stand for what you really want, whilst also being very loving with it as well. Whereas if you try and have this conversation from the outside in, because you're exhausted and reactive and angry, the 5 agonies, chances are it's not going to come from the right place. You're going to have the best intention, but it's not going to come across in the best way, which means the game is going to, continue and probably get a little bit worse for you.
Absolutely. And it's a slippery slope that a lot of men, like I said, fall into. Like genuinely nice guys wanting to help out. And like I said, I don't blame the women at all. I just really don't. It's it's something that I think just naturally gets taught or comes to them during this time. It's not that they're deliberately doing it. It's men are bell-shaped curve, men are stronger, but women also our throwdown or our backlog is the thousands upon thousands of years of evolution for us wanting to procreate and have sex, right? So you look at it from that really analytical standpoint, but you got to set your boundaries. You got to be firm in who you are. right? And that's the hardest question for most men to figure out is who am I, right? Who am I as a man? Not with the label of father, not with the label of husband, not with the label of businessman, but who are you? And staying and doing things from that perspective and what you will tolerate in your standards changes the game, right? And you don't be a dick about it, right? You just have a good conversation, figure out what you want to be, and that allows you to be the jump off spot. And that's what we talk about in the activation method. Obviously we have the triadic connection, hidden motives technique, live like a king system, clean slate method to help these guys, give them tools, but we really shift the balance right there, right? We shift the balance of experiences. And that's how men are able to do a 180 in their relationship in a matter of weeks. Not all of them, right? Some of them takes longer, right? But many shift it right away. 100%. Gentlemen, don't be the chump. I've been there where I've been the nice guy. There's no doubt about it. Fallen into that trap myself unknowingly because I am a nice person, right? But don't be the chump who chases the cheese. That's just not going to get you the result you want to. It's just going to result in, as Tim said, just going to be needy, right? You're being needy and you're coming from that space, and that's just not sexy, right? You want to fall into that area. So, gentlemen, that's a wrap for us here at the Powerful Man Show. As always, if you're a listener, you've been listening to us for a while, I'd greatly appreciate if you just leave a review on wherever you find us, just so other men like you can find out more about the Powerful Man Show and the movement that we call the Powerful Man. Until then, gentlemen, take action. We'll see you next time on the Powerful Man Show.